I'm here with Executive Editor Steve Ehrlich. Steve, you wrote a really interesting article about how Hyperliquid has revitalized interest in perpetual swaps and also what the reception might be in the US, given that Coinbase and Robinhood are going to get in the game. So tell us, how did Hyperliquid change the conversation when it came to perps?
Well, I think anytime that you get Binance founder CZ Changpeng Zhao to tweet directly at you, you've gotten someone's attention. And Hyperliquid has really become a rocket ship in the last few months in terms of eating Binance's market share in the total perps market. At last check, I think they had an all-time high of about 11.7, 11% and change of Binance's total volume. And they really did this in a couple of ways. One, they put together what I was told, speaking to multiple sources and people who trade on the platform, a really sleek and easy to use experience for traders, so that there's no like operational friction. And this is something I know you've also talked about a lot, Laura. They had a very successful token launch event where they really did a good job of sort of sharing the wealth with their users in order to sort of engender just a positive feeling. And then through buybacks and things like that, they've helped to sort of maintain the value of the token. And what's I think really important to note here is that after some of the airdrop activity has sort of tailed off, activity on Hyperliquid is continuing to grow, which is, as you know, in crypto, kind of a rare thing, given how much airdrop farming is sort of a pastime. The fact that they're continuing to maintain and grow volume and market share after they kind of reached that particular marker speaks to the sustainability of what they built.
And so, now we're in this position where we are likely going to see perps finally come to the US. What do we know about US interest in perps?
So in the US, I mean, the interest is definitely there. And one of the ways that we try to determine this is by looking at Hyperliquid website visitors to Hyperliquid. We consulted with SimilarWeb to sort of pull data. It was a little tricky because the website we primarily used was the one for the Hyperliquid Foundation. And for anyone who doesn't know, watching or listening to this, Hyperliquid is more than just a decentralized perpetuals exchange. It's actually an entire L1, and there's a plan to build an entire ecosystem of apps using the DEX as a backend to sort of facilitate liquidity. So there's a whole project there. And usually when people go to the website, that's where they end up on. There's a separate application for the specific trading platform. But again, going back to the main landing page for the foundation, 25% of all users or all visitors came from the United States. And this is very interesting for a couple of reasons. One, Hyperliquid and the Hyperliquid platform is banned in the United States. And if someone with a US IP address goes to the platform and tries to connect their wallet and trade, they will be blocked unless they use a VPN or something like that. Two, all of the other big perp offerings or offers, either centralized or decentralized, that are similarly banned in the United States they do not have nearly the same type of geographic footprint in America as far as website visitors. And I'm talking about Deribit or Bybit or Binance, things like that. So Hyperliquid is really kind of standing out here. That doesn't, again, I'm not trying to say that 25% of Hyperliquid's users are Americans. It's really hard to figure that thing out or figure out that exact number, but it shows that there's a lot of interest in this platform and what they are offering their customers.
And so here we are. Coinbase has announced that it's going to be launching perps in the US actually very soon. Robinhood has not officially announced this, but Arthur Hayes actually said this on Unchained a few weeks ago. I can't really speak to the accuracy of what he's saying there, but it seems pretty obvious that like this would be something that would be right in their wheelhouse. So why do you think that Coinbase and Robinhood are choosing to launch now?
So there's a couple of reasons. One, it's hard to ignore the sort of just the sheer growth of Hyperliquid. And in crypto, as in traditional finance, typically the derivatives markets, futures, options, etc., is substantially higher than the spot market. That's true here now, and it's true in the regular world, and it's only going to get bigger. I think in the story we calculated the exact numbers, but I believe it's orders of magnitude larger than the spot market, the derivatives market. And for two brands like Coinbase and Robinhood that have very heavy retail focuses, this fits very nicely into what they're trying to do. Coinbase gets 86% of its revenue, transaction revenue, by selling to retail customers, and that's all spot. They don't really offer perpetuals yet. They're going to start on July 31st. I think this was July 21st. I'm sorry. That was actually just announced today. They do have a futures product. There are crypto futures in the United States offered. The largest by far is CME Group, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. But those are usually reserved for big institutions that have to go through something called an FCM to even access it. So that's not really available. Perps are very much a retail-focused product because they're easy to use. From an operational point of view, you don't have to worry about rolling over positions at the end of a month. If you use a traditional futures, you can just make a trade, leave it on as long as you want. You still have to pay a funding rate, which basically means you're paying someone to take the other side of the trade. So they're still out there, but it's just much easier. And the thing that people love in crypto, because they speculate so much, is leverage. That's the big difference that these perpetual futures offer that the spot market does not. You can get somewhere between 10, 20, 50, 100x leverage, which can accelerate or accentuate your gains or your losses. But if people have really strong convictions about where the market's going, perpetual futures let you express that opinion on the market.
And so it seems like you're saying that, there's multiple reasons to believe that these will be successful. What more did you find out about how these launches might go?
Yeah, so there's a couple other things that are worth mentioning too. Just following up from my previous answer. Again, there's not great ways to get leverage, especially for U.S. customers. Right now, actually, I think we put this in the story. The most interesting way for most people is to buy into these crypto treasury companies that are trading at multiple premiums to NAV for the billions and billions of dollars that they have on their balance sheet in crypto. But as we've talked about before, and I've detailed in previous reports, they come with a lot of risks. And there's certainly no guarantee that the premiums that these companies have achieved as they're launching and making these big 9 and 10 figure announcements, that they're going to be sustainable. It's very possible that Michael Saylor's strategy is kind of the unicorn in this entire field. And then you don't know how the companies are governed, and you don't know if they're going to take unnecessary risks with the crypto on their balance sheet. So there's a lot of unknowns. Perps are cleaner. So there's that. And then second, these treasury companies and even the futures that are offered by the likes of CME Group, they really only focus on the biggest assets that there are: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, maybe XRP. Combine those amount for, I don't know, somewhere 95% of the total crypto market cap, maybe even higher. If people want to express views on longer tail assets that are less well known, less liquid, and if they really want to do it with leverage, which again may or may not be a good idea, perps are a really great way of doing that because of the way that they're constructed and just some of the ways that the operators, both in the centralized and decentralized flavors, are able to kind of offer liquidity in order to service that type of customer demand. So perps in particular are a great way for customers to express views on longer tail assets with leverage that they would not be able to in the spot market. So for all those different reasons, like, this is a product that I would imagine customers are going to want, especially if alt season really kind of returns. So I know we were talking a little earlier today. Bitcoin, I believe, is the highest. Bitcoin's market cap dominance is the highest that it's been, frankly, in years, since I believe 2021 almost. It's around 65%. That means that Bitcoin is gaining on the rest of the market for the most part. But certainly, there's always the possibility that would switch. And if that happens, then I would expect these types of products, which will be launching in the next couple of months, to really take off.
Do you see any hurdles that the perps in the US will have to overcome?
There's a couple, and we pointed out two in the article. For one, it's going to be interesting to see how these products do when the customers are not going to be incentivized with tokens like Hyperliquid's customers are. A big reason for their surge is, again, the fair launch of the Hype token, which has performed well since its launch, and it's really sort of built that sense of community. Now, Robinhood and Coinbase, they have very strong retail brands, but they're but they haven't like shared the wealth. They're not sharing shares of stock. They don't have tokens that necessarily might bind customers to them if they find a place with better performance, a better deal, something like that. And then speaking about performance, it's also important to note that once perpetuals are launched in the United States, that doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same type of product that you get at Hyperliquid. Perpetuals are regulated by the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and there's going to be restrictions from a risk management point of view on the amount of leverage that's going to be offered. You're probably not going to get 50 to 1. Maybe you'll get 5 to 1 or 10 to 1. And there's also going to be restrictions on the type of collateral that somebody can post in order to take out that leverage. On Hyperliquid, you can post Bitcoin, you can post other things. Whereas here in the US, you might have to post cash or maybe USDC, a regulated stablecoin, but you're probably not going to be able to post Solana as collateral and take out margin to put on a perps bet on Bitcoin or Solana or something like this too. And that's what people want. This is sort of like a hidden part of finance, and one of the big benefits of like Wall Street banks, for instance, is that you have a diverse portfolio, but you can post lots of different things as collateral in order to express views on the market. And as these products are launching right away, you're probably not going to see that. So it's not going to quite be an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, this is why Arthur was saying on the show that he was a fan of Hype, but he was just wondering how the token would do once the U.S. products launched, simply because he did not know what size the overlap was between U.S. users and Hyperliquid users. And as you mentioned, the website traffic, it gives some kind of hint, but we're not sure what exactly it says or how much of an influence that shows. So we'll have to see what happens. All right. Well, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us.
Great. Thanks, Laura.